Well, folks, how many times have I tried to tell you that there is not that much distance between Democrats and Antifa, that the relationship between the insane revolutionary far left who craves violence, celebrate violence, and oftentimes outwardly commits political violence, and the Democrat Party as an institution is a fairly close relationship. I've explained this thus far. I've been saying it ever since the Charlie Kirk assassination, that the Democrats really do have a very convenient thing going on. Because you'll notice after any act of political terrorism, assassination, whatever, they'll put out these vague statements like, well, we condemn violence. But notice they'll never actually condemn the people or the ideas who are driving the violence. If anything, they'll try to shift the blame to Donald Trump or the right wing for a very specific reason. They understand that the revolutionary far leftists are ultimately acting as a paramilitary force for the Democrat Party. They're helping to intimidate the opposition, achieve their own goals, but at the same time, they don't have to claim it, right? The Democrat Party can brand itself as this moderate, pro-democracy, peaceful, liberal party, while of course, they just use these little radical leftists like crazy pawns and go out and commit violence, and secretly the Democrats are actually perfectly okay with what is happening. That should have been clear after the Charlie Kirk assassination. If it was not, it should further be clear with what's happening in Portland, Oregon right now, where the elected Democrat officials of that city are pretty openly saying to your face, yes, we are abetting, if not openly encouraging and sponsoring the radical Antifa who are rioting night after night. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we have yet another example where you're going to see a sitting Democrat candidate. This is a person running in a very major election this year, act and speak in the exact same way you saw hundreds of thousands of lunatics speak online. And why is that again? Because the Democrat Party and those crazies you see in the streets or you see online are ultimately one in the same. And if you don't believe me, just ask the Democrats themselves. Now, this all ties in again, because if you're not familiar, there is a major election this year happening for not just the governor's race, but most of the state positions and the House control in the state of Virginia. It is very contentious. This is something that Republicans flipped back in 2021, but it's a generally blue state. But ladies and gentlemen, we just found out today, as was reported by the National Review, that the Democrat nominee and candidate for the Attorney General position in this race was found just a couple of years ago. By the way, not even Charlie Kirk, right before. Again, this is a long-standing thing. Their behavior should be nothing new here. Fantasizing about shooting the former Republican Speaker of the House in the state of Virginia. That is right. We'll tell you all about this in today's video. But yeah, needless to say, again, prime example of everything we've been talking about. And secondly, hopefully, just for the point of awareness, something that does shake up the race in Virginia and motivates people to realize, these people, the Democrats in the race, can run as moderate as they want. We know who they really are. We've seen what their governance looks like. Maybe that's the message. Hey, you shouldn't go back, right? So that said, guys, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing is the best way to support our work and ensure that we can keep bringing you these videos. And that said, if you're thinking to yourself, there's no way this is even real. Is this really actually the Democrat nominee for the Attorney General position? Yes, it is. Again, not some random Blue Anon account online. Democrat candidate speaking the same exact way that hundreds of thousands of leftists did on the internet after the Charlie Kirk assassination. But you mean to tell me there's a separation, right? The Democrats condemn violence. The Democrats are not on the side of the revolutionary socialists and communists who are waving Antifa flags, but also they won't condemn Antifa. They just say it's an idea. Yeah, don't play dumb with me. This should not be surprising to a single soul on the planet. So that said, here's the story. On August 8th, 2022, a Republican state legislator received a disturbing string of early morning text messages from a former colleague. This guy's name is Jay Jones, and he is this year's Democrat nominee for Virginia Attorney General. So I want you, by the way, to remember how shocking that is. These are not even Democrats speaking amongst themselves, although that's still ultimately relevant. He was willing and bold enough to send this text to a Republican state legislator, guys. So that's him saying, I don't even care, right? I'm willing to express my violent and crazy thoughts to even Republicans. So to the voters of Virginia, please take notes, is all I have to say. Jones, who at the time had recently resigned from the state house after a brief stint representing Norfolk, said he had strong feelings about how the political class was eulogizing the recently deceased former state legislator Joe Johnson Jr., a moderate Democrat with a long tenure in Virginia politics. Republican legislators like House Speaker, so this is the GOP House Speaker, right, Todd Gilbert, had begun making public statements honoring Johnson's memory and political legacy, and some of those statements were making the rounds in state legislative group chats. So in other words, the Republican speaker showed class in someone else's death because, unlike the Democrat Party, the Republican Party is not the party of death and political violence. I mean, I don't even think I should have to give credit to this House Speaker for doing that. It's just, a general sense of human expressing of grief. I don't know. Is that not normal, right? But anyways, around 8 a.m., Jones, the Democrat here, the guy running for Attorney General currently in Virginia, shared those feelings with his former state legislative colleague, Republican House Delegate Kerry Coyner. In a series of text messages obtained by the National Review, and I'm sometimes critical of the National Review, but I have to say major props for breaking this story. But anyways, Jones derided Johnson's political centrism. Keep in mind, Johnson is the Democrat. Jones was attacking him for being basically too moderate. Which, by the way, does that sound familiar? Almost like this Jay Jones guy was ahead of the curve of many other Democrats who today say the same exact thing about their leadership, even though their leadership is fully on board with the radicals, even though they're severely Trump deranged. What do you hear? Oh, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, they're too weak because they're not inciting riots or endorsing political violence. They're cowards for that. They need to be shutting down the government, which is completely antithetical to all of our values and what we actually want, because we need to make a stand against Donald Trump. You're not fighting hard enough. Well, apparently this Jay Jones lunatic is in that same exact train of thought, right? He's one of these crazy far left, we need to fight type of characters. But keep that in mind, and further scoffed at the, quote, glowing tributes that were being made in his honor by Republicans in the wake of his death. So just to understand, by the way, Virginia, about the guy running to be your attorney general, he is so crazy, he insulted this rather, by my understanding, respected moderate Democrat in his death for being too centrist, and then attacked Republicans for honoring the guy's life when he had just died. And by the way, it's not just about him. He, of course, was nominated by the very same exact Democrat Party who is running for all of these seats and all of the places on the ticket in this election in 2025, right? And furthermore, maybe currently trying to rebrand to something, we're moderate, we're sensible, guys, vote for us. We're just these normal, peace-loving, pro-democracy people. But again, this is a greater reflection of who the Democrats actually are, okay? And let me tell you this. If this is one leaked text message by one person, I can virtually guarantee you this is how a lot of Democrat politicians feel, which shouldn't be surprising because they represent who? The Democrat voter base. This is how a lot of the Democrat voter base feels. There should be a one-to-one correlation. We shouldn't just somehow pretend like, politicians, I understand that there's problems with representation in America, but of course there's going to be some sentiments from the base that carry over to the elected officials themselves. Hence, by the way, in many Democrat cities and states, you openly see those politicians protect the crazy left-wingers or, give them a slap on the wrist for committing political violence, if that at all. So that's what was going on here. And apparently he went on to say, quote, "Damn, that was for Mark," he wrote to Coyner, suggesting he'd meant to send the text to someone else. Oh, so he accidentally sent it to a Republican. You screwed up there, buddy. But again, you didn't even think twice. You just hit send, right? Why are you even sending this to a Democrat, by the way? Especially as a former elected official, you're trying to be active in Virginia politics. Oh, accidentally, I didn't mean to send that to you. I only meant to send it to another Democrat. Okay. But yet that realization did not stop Jones from joking about what that POS, which stands for you know what, Gilbert, would say about me if I had died. Then the conversation took a dark turn. Okay? Quote, "If those guys die before me," Jones wrote, which was in reference to the Republican colleagues who were publicly honoring the deceased Democrat's memory, ironically here, I will go to the funerals to piss on their graves, to send them out awash in something. This guy's just deranged, obviously. But again, speaking on behalf of the left-wing base and of the Democrat Party, ladies and gentlemen, running for one of the top seats in the Virginia government, Jones then suggested that if presented with a hypothetical situation in which he had only 2 bullets and was faced with the choice of unaliving then Speaker of the House Todd Gilbert or 2 dictators, he'd shoot the Republican Speaker of the House Todd Gilbert every single time, prompting pushback from his former colleague. This is what he further went on to say. After saying that if Republicans die, he will go to piss on their graves. This is the guy running for the Attorney General position, right? Here's what he further went on to say. Unprompted, by the way. He's talking to a Republican. The Republican's just disturbed right here, right? So here you go. Jones says 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Yeah. That's what this guy said. Spoiler, he goes on here to state, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every single time. For YouTube guidelines, by the way, we obviously disavow this type of violence. I'm reading something from a major political candidate who actually said this in the United States. And yes, I mean, there you go, right? Typical left-wing behavior, by the way. Coiner goes on to say, Jay, please stop. He's clearly disturbed by this. Jones goes on to state, lol, okay. And Coiner follows up the Republican here by saying, it really bothers me when you talk about hurting people or wishing death on them. It isn't okay no matter who they are. Yeah, a fairly tempered response, by the way. But keep in mind, this is the lunatic not only running for any position, he's running for Attorney General, right? This guy's going to decide a lot of key factors of prosecution and criminal justice in this country. And he is actively a guy wishing political violence on other Republicans. Consider for a moment, by the way, how actually dangerous that is, you know? Needless to say, we've seen a lot of George Soros, AGs, and, DAs, prosecutors being put into place. But, I mean, that's another level of it, right? The guy's openly wishing for death and assassination and all these things of Republicans. So, the private messages offer a disturbing glimpse into how Jones, who is looking to oust the Republican Attorney General Jason Miyares this fall, describes his political adversaries in private conversations. Well, needless to say, the guy's insane. The violent rhetoric complicates an already contentious and competitive race roughly a month out from Election Day, where early voting began on September 19th. Well, I have to say amidst all of this, right? First of all, if you live in Virginia, make sure you go vote and vote Republican down the ballot, firstly. Secondly, if you wanted my honest thoughts on the Virginia's race and even the New Jersey race, both of which are the major elections this year, going in, I didn't think Republicans had that strong of a chance, even in Virginia. Because truth be told, I mean, it's just my honest analysis of it, Earle-Sears, the governor candidate there for the Republicans, has not run all that great a campaign. It's sort of disorganized. It's not well funded. The Glenn Youngkin factor, considering Biden was the incumbent back in 2021, is not really working against her now in 2025, right? So just a lot of factors that didn't seem good. But I hope that, the silver lining, for instance, of the Charlie Kirk assassination, and further, this stuff right here, this absolute nonsense garbage, is something of an awakening to the Republican and even moderate voters of that state that, hey, show up to vote, right? Because that's what I thought our issue was going to be in these off-year elections is, generally speaking, Republicans nowadays are the low propensity voters in America, and it just is what it is. But hey, just keep an eye on all this stuff, right? But furthermore, asked about the years-old text exchange, Coiner condemned Jones's rhetoric, needless to say, condemning the rhetoric, and said she sent screenshots of the conversation to Gilbert that day, which is the, again, Republican Speaker of the House. She said she and Jones have not spoken since, aside from a brief conversation about policy issues. But, it basically goes on here. Jay Jones wished violence on the children of a colleague and joked about shooting Todd Gilbert. It's disgusting and unbecoming of any public official. Which is a statement that has to be made, apparently, in 2025, and yet this person is still the Democrat candidate. Incredible, right? Jones's comment has not even responded to the repeated request for comment here. Apparently, they just think they're going to cruise to victory. I don't know, right? But it goes on here. Following publication, another outlet published a reaction from the Jones campaign saying, quote, like all people, I've sent text messages I regret, and I believe that violent rhetoric has no place in our politics. Really? Really, Jay Jones? Oh, yeah, we totally believe you, right? You know, this isn't something you said 30 years ago. This was 3 years ago. You were already a public official at certain points, already an elected representative, and you're just, oh, I just made a mistake. Yeah, silly. You know, you ever have like your dog walk across the keyboard and it just spells out assassination threats against other politicians or death wishes or all of those things, you know? Apparently, this is Jay Jones, you know? The autocorrect, right? The autocorrect accidentally said that, apparently. Okay. But he goes on here to state that, let's be clear about what's happening in the attorney general race right now. Jason Miyares is dropping smears through Trump-controlled media organizations to assault my character and rescue his desperate campaign. So, wait, whoa. He's dropping smears. The smears are what exactly? That you're a far-left radical? That's confirmed by the text messages. Are you going to say the text messages are fake? Well, you're not even denying that either. So it seems to me you've assaulted your own character. You're currently the one in a desperate campaign, and you're the one who has to, answer those questions, right? No, he's just going to change the conversation and talk about Donald Trump this, Donald Trump is bad. Really, dude? Like, even in the moment where you're apologizing, and keep that in mind, by the way, even in the moment where you're apologizing for your insane, violent comments, you can't even say that for 2 seconds and just own it without saying, but Donald Trump and the Republicans are bad, which, by the way, is the same exact thing that Democrats did about Charlie Kirk. Anyone remember J.B. Pritzker going out there and saying political violence is always unacceptable, and Donald Trump is the one fomenting it? It's like, seriously, dude, right? Anyways, he goes on here to claim, with his radical and insane conspiracy theories, that this is a strategy that ensures Jason Miyares will continue to be accountable to Donald Trump, not the people of Virginia. This is the Democrat strategy for everything. I mean, you know, you could get caught on Epstein Island or something, and they're just going to say, but Donald Trump, right? You know, you could get caught, you know, being apparently like one of the 9/11 hijackers, and they would just say that it was still Donald Trump was bad. Are you serious? Really? That's his response here, guys, is Donald Trump, though, right? This race is about whether Trump can control Virginia or Virginians can control Virginia. Well, I think I'd rather have Trump control Virginia than you apparently just like wanting to kill Republicans or something like that, right? But anyways, according to the source here, going on from Coiner, by the way, the Democrat former legislator, contrary to his public comment saying that, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, you know, my dog walked on the keyboard and accidentally said I want to kill people, doubled down on the call talking about this, right? Because, you know, they spoke through Gilbert and all this stuff, right? They're having this, hey, what the heck were you saying, basically, conversation. Jay Jones doubled down, saying that the only way public policy changes is when policymakers feel pain themselves, like the pain that parents feel when they watch their children die from gun violence. That was what he said after those text messages. Basically saying, by the way, right, that lawmakers need to have violence committed against them. That's what he's saying. You know, don't pretend like that's some type of peaceful rhetoric or something like that. He said it pretty openly, right? They need to feel the same pain the lawmakers do as parents who lose children in school shootings. So what is that implicating there, right? Again, this guy is simply a violent person. It's that simple. He asked her to provide counterexamples to disprove his claim, right? Then at one point, the source said he suggested he wished Gilbert's wife. Okay, so he suggested he wished the Republican Speaker of the House's wife could watch her own child die in her arms so that Gilbert might reconsider his political views, prompting Coiner to hang up the phone in disgust. Yeah, so needless to say, I don't think he just got drunk one night and said some stupid things. I think this is what this guy actually thinks, okay? The verdict is on you in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts, because this insane violent lunatic is doubling down. Now, the reason I'm not more shocked in this video than maybe you would think I would be or should be is because I'm not surprised at all. This is how many Democrats out there think. It doesn't shock me that a Democrat politician feels the same way as the exact stuff we've heard from their voters for almost a decade now. And again, just make that clear to the naive, moderate Americans or, people who believe Democrats or whatever, that no, like this is what they stand for. How many times do they need to say it to you, to your face, to understand this is the party of insane, like nihilistic violence? That's it. That's all these people are, right? Afterward, Jones continued his barrage of text messages. He never stopped, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I just said some things I regret. I condemn violent rhetoric. Saying he was just asking questions. Oh yeah, saying that the Speaker of the House should have their kid die. He's just asking questions. Quainer dismissed his excuse via text and chastised Jones for hoping, yes, that the children would die. Yeah, I don't think that's complicated. Rather than deny that he had wished death on the children, Jones responded by saying, quote, "Yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy." And just to go back to my previous point, this is the exact same type of rhetoric that you hear in Antifa group chats that you see crazy leftists say on Reddit or Blue Sky. And again, this guy's not any different than those lunatics, right? But he went on again, ladies and gentlemen. Faced with more pushback from his frazzled former colleague, Jones somehow took the conversation a step further. He tripled down. But I'm sure he just made a mistake. My dog ate my homework, right? Quote, "I mean, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes," he wrote, referring to Gilbert's wife and 2 young children. So this political candidate, furthermore, kind of excuses the passing, if it were to tragically happen, of the Republicans' children, because in his own words, they're breeding little fascists. So not only is this guy trying to foment political violence, he doesn't even care if it happens to innocent children because they committed the grave mortal sin of being born to Republican parents. Ladies and gentlemen, the Democrat Party for you. That's all I have to say. Democrat Party. And by the way, unless every single Virginia Democrat comes out and says, we disavow and condemn his entire candidacy, we're going to push to take his name off the ballot or he's not going to be able to run next to the Democrat label, right? Unless that happens, unless you see an organized push for that, unless the national DNC officially says you're not affiliated with us anymore, then I am in my full right to say normal Democrat. Because this is the candidate that they run and they support, right? I don't want, even if they put out a vague statement saying, we condemn what he said. Okay, I don't care if you condemn what he said. Are you going to acknowledge that this vile lunatic should not be any representative of your party? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to keep letting him run, right? Because they ultimately want to win the seat. And so, even if they do, if they win the seat, then this violent lunatic, they don't care about that, right? Why is that? Because the Democrat Party is perfectly fine, if not openly encouraging of political violence. Even against children, apparently. There you go. Democrat Party for you. And by the way, the record around Jay Jones simply does get even worse. Because as you can see, in the final stretch of this campaign, the now 36-year-old, only 36, already that crazy, okay, Jay Jones now faces a slew of other controversies relating to his criminal history, state legislative record, and professional experience. Oh, criminal history, you say. So once again, average Democrat, right? These are the most upstanding members of society that they constantly want to defend and, not just say, oh, let's let him out of the jail. Apparently, let's also anoint him to political office, right? That's fantastic. A great idea. Let's have someone with a criminal history, not just be a politician, but be an attorney general, ladies and gentlemen. Clap it up for the Democrat Party, okay? So a Richmond Times-Dispatch investigation published this week found that in 2022, Jones was convicted in a reckless driving case after he was pulled over driving 116 miles per hour on Interstate 64, 46 miles above the speed limit. Now, keep in mind, You know, he's probably going to have some level in prosecuting even things like speeding tickets, right? Through his office, potentially, is what I'm saying there. And that's how he treats the law, running for attorney general, right? His punishment was a $1,500 fine and 1,000 hours of community service, 500 of which he spent working for his own political action committee, a remarkably convenient sentence for a crime that can land convicts in jail for up to a year. So yeah, his 1,000 hours of community service, half of it he just did running his own campaign. That's totally not fraud. The young attorney general nominee also faced criticism for his lack of prosecutorial experience. So he's not even an experienced prosecutor, ladies and gentlemen, in his bid to become the Commonwealth's highest ranking law enforcement officer, as well as his progressive state legislative record that Republicans pan as being soft on crime. Gee, I wonder why. When a guy endorses political violence and himself is just breaking the law and is totally fine with that while he's in office and trying to run for attorney general, I mean, are you really all that surprised, right? And he's come under fire for exaggerating his legal accomplishments, including the role he played in the District of Columbia's successful 2022 legal victory against a ghost gun manufacturer. Okay, so let's recap and let's get all of that straight. Number one, the guy is a deranged lunatic who really fantasizes about political violence. Check mark, average Democrat. The guy has a criminal history. Check mark, average Democrat. The guy is a DEI hire who is exaggerating about his qualifications and actually has no real merit to be doing the job he's asking for. Check mark, typical Democrat. Ladies and gentlemen, what else has to be said about this story? Then this is the average Democrat, and Virginia should take notes of it, not just when they vote for this guy, but when they vote up and down the entire ticket this November, which again, make sure you vote. If you didn't have the motivation before, let this be it. Make sure you are involved this year in the 2025 elections. They matter, especially if you live in those states, a lot more than you think. But all right, there you go, guys. There is the story out of Virginia. That said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.